The Draconian warship hung in the darkness of space like a mountain made of metal and hate. Its name was the Burning Claw, and it was the flagship of High Overlord, commander of 12,000 ships and destroyer of worlds. Stood on the command bridge, his scaled body towering over his officers. His eyes were yellow with black slits, and when he smiled, rows of sharp teeth showed. He had lived for 300 years. He had burned planets. He had made entire species bow before him or watched them die. Today he was going to do something easy. He was going to crush the humans. The Draconians ruled most of the galaxy. They had done so for 10,000 years. Other species called them the Masters, the Overlords, the Endless Hunger. They took what they wanted. They killed whoever stood in their way. More than 400 species had fallen to their claws. Some were slaves now. Others were simply gone, erased from history like they had never existed. Humans were new. They had only been in space for 300 years. They controlled 12 small star systems. Their ships were weak. Their bodies were soft and breakable. They had no scales, no claws, no natural weapons. The Galactic Council, a group of species that tried to maintain peace, had classified humans as a Level 2 civilization. This meant they were barely worth noticing. But humans had something wanted. Their systems contained rare minerals that the Draconian war machine needed, so he had sent them an offer they could not refuse. The message had been simple: surrender everything. Give us your worlds, your resources, your people. You will serve the hegemony. You will work in our mines and factories. Your children will be born into slavery. This is not a request. This is your future. You have 72 hours to accept. If you refuse, we will come. And when we come, nothing will remain. Had sent this message to hundreds of species before. Most surrendered immediately. Some tried to fight and died quickly. A few tried to run and were hunted down. No one had ever beaten the Draconian armada. It was simply not possible. So when the human response arrived, was amused. The message came from someone called Admiral. She was the supreme commander of something called the United Terran Confederacy. Her message was short. It said, "We do not surrender. We do not kneel. Come if you dare." Laughed so hard that his officers looked worried. They had never seen him laugh like this. It was the laugh of someone who had just heard the funniest joke in the universe. "These creatures," he said, still laughing, "these soft little mammals with their weak bodies and their tiny fleet, they dare to challenge us. They dare to tell us to come." He turned to his communications officer. "Send a message to the Empress. Tell her I will bring her a gift. I will bottle the oceans of Earth and lay them at her feet. I will bring her human slaves to clean her scales. This will take no more than a few days." The message was sent. The fleet prepared to move. Across the galaxy, other species watched. The Galactic Council held an emergency meeting. Ambassadors from a dozen civilizations spoke in sad voices about the humans. Such a young species. Such a shame. They had shown promise. Now they would be destroyed like so many others. The ambassador, a tall being made of crystal and light, sent a private message to Earth. It was a condolence message, written as if the humans were already dead. "We mourn your coming loss. May your spirits find peace in the void." The ambassador, an insect creature with too many eyes, simply watched and calculated how long it would take the Draconians to finish the job. The merchants began betting on how many days until Earth fell. The smart money said 3 days. Some optimists said a week. No one bet on the humans winning. That would have been insane. On Earth, the news of the ultimatum spread quickly. People were afraid. Children asked their parents if they were going to die. Old people remembered the peaceful years and wondered if they had always been borrowed time. But something strange happened. Instead of panic, instead of chaos, humanity began to prepare. Factories that had been making civilian goods switched to military production overnight. Ships that had been exploring distant systems turned around and headed home. Men and women who had never held a weapon lined up to volunteer. Admiral stood in her command center on Mars and watched the reports come in. She was 63 years old. Her hair was gray. Her eyes were tired but sharp. She had spent her whole career preparing for a moment like this, hoping it would never come, knowing it probably would. Her aide brought her the latest numbers. The Draconians had 12,000 warships. Humanity had 340. Each Draconian ship was bigger, faster, and more heavily armed than anything humans had built. Admiral, her aide said, "The math is impossible." Looked at him for a long moment. Then she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something others did not. "The Draconians think they know us," she said. "They think we are like the other species they have crushed. They think we will break. They think we will beg. They are wrong." She pulled up a file on her screen. It was marked with more security warnings than her aide had ever seen. The name of the file was Project Leviathan. "Send a message to Doctor at Station 7, she said. "Tell him it is time. Tell him to wake the monster." Her aide did not know what that meant, but the way the Admiral said it made his blood run cold. In the darkness between worlds, the Draconian fleet entered, that strange dimension that allowed ships to travel faster than light. 12,000 ships, each one a weapon of terror, each one crewed by warriors who had never known defeat. They were coming to destroy a species that had existed for only a few 100,000 years. High Overlord sat on his throne and imagined the glory that awaited him. He would be remembered as the one who added another species to the list of the conquered. The humans would learn what so many had learned before them. The universe belonged to the strong. The weak existed only to serve or to die. He closed his yellow eyes and dreamed of fire. He did not know that he was flying toward his death. He did not know that the humans had been waiting. He did not know that in the cold darkness of their solar system, something ancient and terrible was waking up. The cosmos held its breath. The countdown had begun. Lieutenant Commander stood on the observation deck of the TCS Unconquered and stared into the black emptiness of space. Behind him, he could hear the sounds of a ship preparing for battle, metal clanging, boots running, voices giving orders. But here, in this small room with its wide window, there was only silence and stars. He was 34 years old. He had a wife on Earth and two daughters, ages 7 and 9. Their names were Maya and Sophie. Maya wanted to be a pilot like her father. Sophie wanted to be a doctor. He wondered if they would get the chance to grow up. The door opened behind him. A young ensign walked in. Her name was Park and she was only 22. Her eyes were red. She had been crying. "Sir," she said, "I finished writing my message to my family. I wanted to ask you something." Turned to look at her. "What is it?" "Are we going to die?" It was a simple question. Thought about lying. He thought about giving her a speech about courage and duty and honor, but she deserved the truth, or at least part of it. "I do not know," he said. "Maybe, but if we die fighting. We die protecting our families. There are worse ways to go." Park nodded slowly. "My grandmother survived the Pacific War. She always said that humans are at their best when things are at their worst. Do you believe that?" Thought about it. He thought about all the history he had learned, the wars, the disasters, the plagues. Every time humanity had faced extinction, they had found a way to survive, not because they were the strongest or the fastest but because they refused to give up. "Yes," he said, "I believe that." Somewhere far away, Admiral was having a very different conversation. She had traveled to Station 7, a hidden base built inside an asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. From the outside, the asteroid looked like any other rock floating in space. But inside, it held humanity's greatest secret. Doctor met her at the docking bay. He was a tall man with dark skin and worried eyes. He had spent 20 years working on Project Leviathan. He knew better than anyone what it could do. "Admiral," he said, shaking her hand, "I wish we were meeting under better circumstances." "So do I, Doctor. Is it ready?" He led her through metal corridors lit by cold blue lights. Workers rushed past them, checking systems, running tests. The air smelled like electricity and fear. "It is ready," said, "but I need you to understand something. What we built here is not just a weapon. It is a door to something we do not fully understand." They reached a massive control room. Screens covered every wall, showing data that could barely understand. In the center of the room was a holographic display of the solar system. Red dots showed the positions of human ships. A massive cloud of purple dots showed the Draconian fleet, still getting closer every minute. "Tell me the history," said. "I want to hear it from you." Nodded and began to speak. In 2189, a human expedition to Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, made a discovery that changed everything. Beneath the ice, buried for millions of years, they found the ruins of a civilization that had existed long before humans. The scientists called them the precursors. The precursors had been incredibly advanced. They had built cities in space. They had traveled between galaxies. And then, suddenly, they had disappeared. No one knew why. No one knew where they went. They left behind only ruins and technology so advanced that humans could barely understand it. Most of the precursor technology was useless. Humans did not have the knowledge to make it work, but one thing was different. Deep in the ice of Europa, the expedition found a machine. It was small, no bigger than a car. But when scientists studied it, they realized something terrifying. The machine could tear holes in space itself. It could create rifts in the fabric of reality, openings to somewhere else. Somewhere dark, somewhere hungry. The scientists did not know where the rifts led. They only knew that anything that went in did not come out. Matter, energy, light itself was pulled in and consumed. It was as if the machine opened doors to a place that ate everything. The Terran government classified the discovery immediately. They built Station 7 to study the machine and to build more like it. They created Project Leviathan, and they waited. "We always knew this day might come," said. "We hoped it would not, but we prepared anyway." Looked at the holographic display. The purple cloud was getting closer. In less than 20 hours, 12,000 ships would arrive in human space. "What happens when we turn it on?" she asked. Was quiet for a moment. "Space will open. Rifts will appear throughout the enemy formation. Anything near the rifts will be pulled in, destroyed, consumed. There will be no escape, no survival. The Draconians will simply cease to exist. And us, our ships. We can control where the rifts appear. Our ships will be safe if they stay in the designated zones. But Admiral," he paused, "once we use this, the galaxy will know. They will see what we can do. Every species, every civilization will watch humanity tear apart the most powerful fleet in existence. They will be afraid of us. They will hate us. They will want us dead." Was silent for a long time. She thought about her crew members writing goodbye letters to their families. She thought about children on Earth looking up at the sky, wondering if monsters were coming. She thought about 12,000 enemy ships full of soldiers who wanted to enslave her people. "Better feared than extinct," she said. "Power it up, Doctor. When the Draconians arrive, we will be ready." On the edge of the solar system, space began to twist. Light bent in strange ways. The Draconian fleet was coming out of 12,000 ships materializing like a swarm of angry dragons. High Overlord opened his eyes and looked at There it was, Sol, a small yellow star with a handful of planets. Earth was the third one, a blue and green ball of water and life, so fragile, so weak. "All ships," he broadcast, "this is the High Overlord. Today we add another species to our glory. Today we show the galaxy what happens to those who defy the hegemony. Begin the approach. Let them see us coming. Let them know their death." His fleet spread out in the legendary Talon formation, thousands of ships arranged like the claws of a great beast. Plasma lances began to charge, glowing with deadly energy. Fighters launched from carrier bays. The war machine of the Draconians prepared to do what it had done so many times before. But in the asteroid belt, hidden among the rocks and ice, something was waking up. Leviathan was coming online. The doors were about to open. And on 340 human ships, crews stopped writing their goodbye letters. They looked at each other with something new in their eyes. It was not hope exactly. It was not courage. It was something older, something that had lived in human hearts since the first person picked up a rock to fight off a predator. It was defiance, pure burning defiance. The storm was about to break. The Battle of Sol began with fire. Draconian plasma lances lit up the darkness between Neptune and Uranus. Thousands of beams of burning light shot across space toward the tiny human fleet. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like watching a volcano destroy a village. On the bridge of the TCS Unconquered, Lieutenant Commander gripped his chair as the ship shook. Their shields took hit after hit. Warning lights flashed red. Somewhere below deck, a power conduit exploded and 2 crew members died. "Hold formation," the captain shouted. "Nobody breaks formation." The human fleet had arranged itself in a defensive sphere, 340 ships protecting each other, buying time. But time for what? That was the question on every mind. They could not win this fight with guns and missiles. Everyone knew that. High Overlord watched from his flagship with growing pleasure. The humans were not running. He had to respect that, even if it was stupid. They were fighting like cornered animals, desperate and doomed. "Increase power to forward lances," he ordered. "I want their defensive line broken within the hour. Target their largest ships first. Show them what real power looks like." The Burning Claw and its escort ships pushed forward. More plasma beams filled space. More human ships took damage. The TCS lost its engines and drifted, helpless. The TCS New Shanghai exploded in a ball of fire and metal. In the asteroid belt, Admiral watched the battle on her screens. Her face was stone. Her hands were steady, but inside her heart was breaking. Every lost ship meant hundreds of dead crew members, families destroyed, lives ended. Doctor stood beside her. "Admiral, the system is fully charged. We can activate at any time." She waited. More ships died. The Draconians pushed closer. "Admiral, please," said, "if we wait too long." "I know." She took a deep breath. "Target their main formation. Leave a corridor open for our ships to retreat through. And Doctor." "Yes." "May God forgive us for what we are about to do." She gave the order, "Activate Leviathan." Across the asteroid belt, hidden stations that looked like ordinary rocks came alive. Energy pulsed through systems that had waited decades for this moment. Reality itself began to bend. And then space opened. It started as small points of darkness, tiny holes in the fabric of the universe. But they grew quickly, expanding into swirling rifts of absolute black. They appeared everywhere in the Draconian formation, between ships, behind ships, inside ships. The first Draconian cruiser to die did not explode. It simply stretched. The rift behind it pulled at the ship like a hand grabbing cloth. Metal screamed as it was torn apart. The crew had no time to understand what was happening. One moment they were at their stations. The next moment they were being pulled into darkness, their bodies stretching into impossible shapes before vanishing completely. Watched his with confusion that quickly turned to horror. Ships were disappearing all around him, not exploding, not damaged, just gone, pulled into holes in space that should not exist. "What is this?" he roared. "What are they doing?" His tactical officer could barely speak. "Unknown weapons, High Overlord. Our ships cannot escape. The rifts are following them. Our plasma lances have no effect. The energy just goes in and does not come out." A rift opened 50 kilometers from the Burning Claw. 3 escort ships were pulled in instantly, crumpling like paper balls thrown into a fire. The rift hung there, spinning slowly, waiting for more. had lived for 300 years. He had conquered worlds. He had watched species beg for mercy. He had never been afraid. But now, watching his invincible fleet being eaten by holes in reality, he felt something cold spreading through his body. For the first time in his long life, he understood fear. On the Unconquered, and his crew watched in stunned silence. The draconian ships that had been shooting at them moments ago were now desperately trying to flee. But there was nowhere to go. The rifts were everywhere. "My God," Ensign Park whispered, "what did we do?" Shook his head slowly. He had no words. He was watching thousands of enemy soldiers die in ways that should not be possible. It was victory. It was survival. But it felt like something else too. It felt like crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. The battle lasted 4 hours. Or rather, the killing lasted 4 hours. It stopped being a battle the moment Leviathan activated. The Draconians had no defense against weapons that tore apart the universe itself. High Overlord ordered a retreat when he had lost half his fleet, but retreat was almost impossible. The rifts blocked every path. Ships that tried to escape were caught and consumed. Captains who tried to surrender found that the humans were not accepting prisoners. There was no one to surrender to. There were only the rifts, hungry and patient. In the end, 17 Draconian ships managed to reach. 17 out of 12,000. They fled into the faster-than-light dimension, carrying with them footage of what they had seen. Was not among them. His flagship, the mighty Burning Claw, was caught by 3 rifts at once. The ship was pulled in 3 different directions. The High Overlord had just enough time to send one final transmission. "They are not prey," he said, his voice shaking for the first time in centuries. "They are not what we thought they are." The transmission ended in static. The Burning Claw was gone, pulled into darkness along with every soul on board. Admiral watched the last rift close. Space returned to normal, empty and quiet. Where 12,000 ships had been, there was now nothing. No wreckage, no debris, no bodies. The Draconian fleet had simply ceased to exist. She checked the human casualties. 43 ships lost. About 10,000 dead. It was a tragedy. But compared to what could have happened, compared to the extinction of humanity, it was acceptable. Acceptable, she hated that word, but it was true. The 17 surviving Draconian ships reached their home territory within days. They broadcast their recordings to every corner of the galaxy. Every species with the ability to receive transmissions saw what had happened at Sol. They saw the rifts opening. They saw the most powerful fleet in existence being eaten by darkness. They saw the humans, those weak, soft-bodied mammals, destroy in hours what no one had touched in 10,000 years. The galaxy had thought humans were prey, easy victims, another species to be conquered and forgotten. Now they knew better. Now they knew that somewhere in the cosmos there was a species that could tear open reality itself. A species that had been hiding its true power. A species that had just announced itself to the universe in the most terrifying way possible. The Draconian Empress received the news in her throne room. She watched the footage 3 times. Then she stood up and walked to her window. She looked out at her empire, the empire her ancestors had built over 10,000 years. For the first time since she had taken the throne, she was afraid. In the darkness between stars, species that had never heard of Earth now whispered its name. Something had changed. The old order was breaking, and no one knew what would come next. The cosmos trembled. Humanity had arrived. 1 month after the Battle of Sol, the galaxy was still in shock. On 1,000 worlds, beings of every shape and size watched the footage again and again. They saw Draconian ships pulled into darkness. They saw the most feared military force in existence erased in hours. They saw the impossible become real. And they all asked the same question: what do the humans want? The Galactic Council met in emergency session on their station at the center of the galaxy. Ambassadors from 300 species crowded into the Great Chamber. a massive room built to hold beings as small as insects and as large as whales. The noise was incredible. Everyone was talking at once. Everyone was afraid. Ambassador Wei walked to the speaking platform in the center of the chamber. He was a small man compared to most of the aliens around him. 60 years old, gray hair, a calm face that showed nothing. He wore a simple black suit. No weapons, no guards, just a human standing alone among the stars. The chamber fell silent. Every eye, every sensor, every mind focused on him. "My name is Wei," he said. His voice was soft, but the microphones carried it to every corner of the room. "I speak for the United Terran Confederacy. I speak for Earth, for Mars, for our colonies and our people." A draconian representative stood up. He was smaller than had been, younger, angrier. "You murdered millions of our soldiers. You destroyed our fleet with weapons that should not exist. The hegemony demands justice." Let him finish. Then he smiled. It was not a threatening smile. It was the smile of a teacher explaining something simple to a child. "Your High Overlord came to our home," said. "He told us to surrender or die. He gave us 72 hours to become slaves. We chose neither option. We defended ourselves. That is not murder. That is survival." "You have weapons beyond anything we have seen," another ambassador shouted. This one was from the insect species. "You hid your true power from the Council. You deceived us all." "We hid nothing," replied. "You simply never asked what we were capable of. You looked at our soft bodies and our small fleet and decided we were weak. That was your mistake, not our deception." The chamber erupted in arguments. Species that had ignored humanity for centuries now demanded to know everything about them. Some wanted alliances. Some wanted the technology. Some wanted humans destroyed before they could become a threat. Waited for the noise to die down. Then he spoke again. "The Terran Confederacy seeks only peace and fair trade. We did not start this war. We merely ended it. We have no desire to conquer anyone. We have no interest in ruling the galaxy. We want to live our lives, raise our children, and explore the stars. Is that so hard to understand?" An ambassador, one of the crystal beings, rose gracefully. "Ambassador, perhaps you speak truth, but you must understand our fear. You have shown power beyond anything we imagined. How can we trust that you will not use it against us?" Nodded. "Trust must be earned, I know this. So here is what I offer. Any species that wishes to send observers to Earth is welcome. Come, see how we live, meet our people, learn who we are. We will hide nothing." It was a bold offer. No species had ever made such an invitation to the entire galaxy. The chamber buzzed with surprised conversation. But not everyone was ready to trust. Far from the council chamber, on a dark moon in a forgotten system, a different meeting was taking place. 7 beings sat around a table made of black stone. They represented 7 species, all of them afraid, all of them angry. They called themselves the Purity Accord. "The humans must be destroyed," said the representative, her many eyes gleaming. "They are too dangerous to exist. If we wait, they will only grow stronger." A noble, his blue skin dark in the dim light, shook his head. "They will not join any attack on Earth. We saw what happened to the Draconians. We will not repeat their mistake." "Then you are a coward," the replied. "I am practical. There is a difference." The leader of the group was one of the merchant species. His name was, and he was very old and very clever. "We cannot defeat the humans in open battle," he said. "Their weapon makes that impossible, but they have weaknesses. They have colonies. They have civilians. If we strike fast enough before they can activate their defenses, we can hurt them." "And then what?" they asked. "They will come for us with their reality-tearing weapons." Smiled, his teeth were sharp and yellow. "They are soft-hearted, these humans. They showed mercy to the Draconians who surrendered. They did not hunt down the survivors. They have morality. We can use that against them." The plan was simple. Attack a human colony. Kill as many as possible. Then flee before the humans could respond. Show the galaxy that humans could bleed. Show them that the masters of reality-tearing weapons were not invincible. It was a terrible plan. It was a cruel plan, but fear makes beings do terrible things. Back on Earth, life was slowly returning to normal. People went back to work. Children went back to school. The immediate threat was over, even if the future remained uncertain. Doctor sat alone in his apartment in Geneva. He had not slept well since the battle. Every night he saw the rifts in his dreams. He saw ships being pulled into darkness. He heard the screams of dying soldiers, even though no sound had reached them through space. A knock came at his door. He opened it to find Admiral standing there. She looked as tired as he felt. "May I come in?" she asked. They sat together in his small living room, drinking tea that neither of them tasted. "I cannot stop thinking about what we did," said. "Millions of beings died because of the machine I helped build. Their blood is on my hands." Set down her cup. "Their blood is on's hands. He brought his fleet to our home. He wanted to enslave our children. We defended ourselves. But did we have to kill so many? Could we have found another way?" Was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with exhaustion. "I do not know. I ask myself that question every hour, but here is what I do know. If we had not used Leviathan, humanity would be dead or enslaved right now. Our cities would be burning. Our people would be in chains." She looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. "We did what we had to do. Now we have to live with it. That is the price of survival." Nodded slowly. He understood, but understanding did not make the nightmares go away. Across the galaxy, things were changing fast. The draconian hegemony was fracturing. Species that had been their slaves for centuries saw weakness and began to rebel. The Empress tried to hold her empire together, but fear had replaced respect. Her subjects no longer believed the draconians were invincible. Some species reached out to humanity, hopping for alliance or protection. They sent scholars to learn about human culture. The smaller species, the ones who had always lived in fear of the strong, began to hope that maybe the galaxy was changing. But the Purity Accord continued to plan in the shadows. They gathered ships in secret. They chose their target, a human colony called New Kyoto, far from Earth, far from the main defenses. War was coming again. Humanity had won one battle, but the cosmos was vast and full of fear. And fear, as the Purity Accord knew, could be a weapon too. On Earth, people looked up at the stars and wondered what would happen next. They had survived. They had shown the galaxy their strength. But strength alone was not enough to build a future. The question remained: what kind of power did humanity want to be? What would they do with the terrible gift they had been given? The answer would come soon, and it would change everything. 6 months after the Battle of Seoul, the attack came without warning. New Kyoto was a peaceful colony. 50,000 people lived there, farming the rich soil, building homes, raising families. They had celebrated when the Draconians were defeated. They had believed the worst was over. They were wrong. The Purity Accord fleet dropped out of at midnight local time. 200 ships from 7 species, all of them united by fear and hate. Their orders were simple: kill everyone, leave nothing alive, show the galaxy that humans could bleed. The first missiles hit the capital city while people were sleeping. Buildings collapsed. Fires spread. People ran into the streets, confused and terrified. The colony had a small defense force, maybe 20 ships and a few ground batteries. It was not enough. Governor sent a desperate message to Earth. "We are under attack. Multiple species, hundreds of ships. We cannot hold. Please help us." The message took hours to reach Earth. By the time it arrived, 3,000 people were already dead. Admiral received the news in her office. She read the message twice. Then she stood up and walked to her window. Outside, the lights of New Geneva sparkled in the night. Families were having dinner. Children were doing homework. People were living their lives not knowing that on a distant world their fellow humans were dying. "Get me a connection to all defense stations," she said. Her voice was calm but cold. "And prepare a broadcast to the attacking fleet." The Purity Accord commanders were celebrating when the transmission came through. They had destroyed the colony's defenses. Their ground troops were landing. The humans were fleeing, dying, begging for mercy. Everything was going according to plan. Then Admiral's face appeared on every screen. "You have attacked our people," she said. "Our children, our homes. We gave the Draconians a chance to withdraw. We gave them 72 hours to reconsider. We gave them mercy they did not deserve." Her eyes were hard as stone. "We give you none." The Purity Accord commanders laughed. They were far from Earth, far from the Leviathan stations. The humans could not reach them in time. By the time any response arrived, they would be gone, back to the safety of their own space. They stopped laughing when the rifts opened. What the galaxy did not know, what humanity had kept secret even after the Battle of Saul, was that Leviathan was not limited to the asteroid belt. In the months since the battle, smaller nodes had been installed throughout human space, hidden in moons, buried in asteroids, waiting. New Kyoto had 3 such nodes. The first rift opened directly in the center of the Purity Accord formation. Ships that had been firing on innocent people suddenly found themselves being pulled toward darkness. The second rift appeared behind the fleet, cutting off escape. The third opened above the planet, swallowing missiles before they could reach the surface. Commander of the watched his fleet die around him. The same fear that had driven him to attack humanity now paralyzed him. He had thought the humans were too moral to strike back this hard. He had thought their mercy was weakness. He had been wrong. "All ships retreat," he screamed. "Retreat now." But there was nowhere to retreat to. The rifts followed them, hunted them, consumed them. Ships that tried to flee were caught. Ships that tried to fight had their weapons swallowed by darkness. One by one, the Purity Accord fleet disappeared into the void. The killing stopped only when there was no one left to kill. On the surface of New Kyoto, the surviving colonists emerged from their shelters. They looked up at the sky and saw nothing. The enemy fleet was gone. The fires were dying. Help ships from Earth were already on their way. Governor stood in the ruins of his capital and wept. 3,000 of his people were dead, but 50,000 were alive. They had survived because their species had become something that could not be ignored. The aftermath was swift and terrible. The Purity Accord collapsed overnight. The 7 species that had joined the attack surrendered immediately, their governments begging for mercy. They expected punishment. They expected revenge. They expected humanity to do what the Draconians would have done, what any strong species had always done to the weak. Instead, Ambassador Wei addressed the Galactic Council once more. 3,000 of our people died on New Kyoto, he said. Families destroyed, children killed in their beds. We have every right to demand blood. We have the power to take it. The chamber was silent. Every being waited to hear humanity's judgment. But we will not, continued. Revenge would bring us nothing but more death. It would make us into the monsters you feared we might become. So instead, we offer justice. The terms were firm but fair. The attacking species would pay reparations to the families of the dead. They would submit to weapons inspections. They would sign treaties promising never to attack human space again. But they would keep their worlds. They would keep their governments. They would keep their dignity. We are not conquerors, said. We are not your masters. We are humans. We want to trade to learn to explore. We want allies, not subjects, but understand this. We will never again be prey. We will never again be underestimated. Threaten our worlds and we will answer. Harm our people and there will be consequences. But offer us friendship and you will find no species more loyal, more curious, or more willing to build something beautiful together. The galaxy watched and waited. Some species accepted the offer with relief. Others remained suspicious. but none could deny what they had witnessed. Humanity had been attacked twice. They had won both times, and both times they had chosen restraint over revenge. That was something new. That was something the galaxy had never seen. Years passed. The cosmos slowly stabilized. The draconian hegemony continued to shrink as former slaves broke free. The Purity Accord species became some of humanity's closest trading partners, grateful for mercy they had not expected. Doctor-led research teams studying the precursor technology. Scientists from a dozen worlds worked together, trying to understand the rifts without creating new weapons. It was slow work, but it was good work. Admiral retired to a small house on Mars. She grew vegetables in her garden. She watched the sunset over red mountains, and for the first time in years she slept peacefully. The nightmares finally stopped. Lieutenant Commander was promoted to captain, then admiral. His daughters grew up strong and brave. Maya became a pilot, just like she had always wanted. Sophie became a doctor and saved more lives than she could count. Ambassador continued to represent humanity to the galaxy. He became known as the voice of Earth, the man who had offered peace when he could have demanded conquest. When he died at the age of 93, representatives from 200 species attended his funeral. The Leviathan system remained. It was always there, always ready, but it was never used again. Humanity did not need to tear apart reality to prove their strength. They had proven it in a different way, a harder way. They had proven that power was not about destruction. It was about choices, and they had chosen to be something better than conquerors. Young species, new to the stars, heard the story of the soft-bodied primates who had devoured the draconian fleet. They learned about the Battle of Sol. They learned about New Kyoto, and they learned the lesson that the cosmos had learned. Humanity did not seek war, but if war found them, they ended it. More importantly, they learned that humans could be trusted, that humans kept their word, that humans would fight beside you, trade with you, learn with you, build with you. The cosmos no longer trembled in dread of humanity. It trembled in respect, and perhaps, just perhaps, in hope. Because the galaxy had seen many things in its long history. It had seen empires rise and fall. It had seen species born and die. It had seen war and peace, cruelty and kindness, horror and beauty. But it had never seen anything quite like humans, soft-bodied, short-lived, endlessly curious, capable of terrible violence and tremendous mercy in equal measure. The stars had a new story to tell now, and it was just beginning.